for this workshop you will need coloured paper or card, scissors, a pencil, PVA glue, and also using a cotton bud to use the PVA, some chunky beads, some coloured wool, a hole punch, and either glue dots or sellotape. The first thing we're going to do is take a piece of paper and we're going to use a stencil, which you can download from the website, and we're going to be drawing all the way around this. But first of all, we want our elephant to be able to stand up, so we're going to use the back of the elephant to rest it along a fold in the paper. So this paper is A4 size and it's quite a thick paper, it's a little bit verging onto card. You can do it with paper, but you can also use card. So we're going to fold it over and make sure that the corners on each side meet. Let's get a nice fold to it. And because it's card and a little bit thick, I'm going to use the edge of a felt tip just to get a really good crease. On that fold. So that's great, it stands up. We've got the nice fold along this edge, so we're going to place that down, and where the fold is we're going to take our elephant template and we're going to put the back section of the elephant and tuck it right up to the top. And then the next thing, I'm going to take a pen or pencil and I'm going to draw all around the stencil. I'm just drawing around in sections. And if you're worried about this staying in place, you can use some tape to hold it in place while you draw around, or get someone to help you to hold it in place, because it can be tricky sometimes. Stencils can end up moving. So if I take that off there, so we've got our elephant template complete. And the next thing we're going to do is take some scissors and we're going to follow the lines, and because we've got two pieces together, we need to make sure we're holding it together and cutting along the lines. And so now we've got our elephant, we want to decide how long its legs might be. And I'm just going to test if it'll stand up okay. So that's what your template should look like as a flat piece, and that's what our elephant will start off like. And here is the elephant's body, and here is the neck, and this is where we're going to do some creases. So we're going to crease along the fold there. So we're going to fold it back, and then where the ears start with this bit here, we're going to fold it forward, and that gives us a little bit of movement, and it raises the ears up as well from there, so that should work really well. So have a look at that, and you can slightly curve the ears up so they're working together. And the next thing we need to do is think about the trunk, because the trunk's quite long and straight at the moment. So I've made these little slits here, and this is just going to let us fold the trunk. So we're going to fold it over once, and I'm going to go fold it over twice. So now we want to try and make the elephant's head lean forward a little bit, the ears lean forward. So we're just gonna undo that a little bit. And it's more about creasing it and folding it. So we're gonna push the elephant's ears like that, and then we're going to crease it in and fold it. And I think our elephant's trunk is a bit long. I'm going to tuck our elephant trunk in. And our elephant also needs a tail. So to make the tail, you can use a piece of the leftover paper, and we only need one strip of card. So the tail is going to tuck in a little bit behind, so it's a little bit sticky in there. And then it's going to have a little bit there with tassels. So put the tail down. So just made it a bit thinner at the edges. And then we want to make lots of tassels, so I'm going to cut in. And then I'm going to use the tail but fold it in half at the top. So just going to fold it in half at the top and fold that down. So we've got a nice tassely tail for our elephant. And we can also fold that and crease it. So we're folding and creasing that. So that will stick inside here. So to stick the tail in, I'm going to use a glue dot, but you can use tape as well, so whatever's at hand and whatever's easier. So with the glue dot, or if you're using tape, you'd lie it on, put the tape over. With the glue dot, I'm going to put the glue on the back. I'm going to peel that off. And stick. Just have a look. And again, with the trunk where I've bent it, I'm going to open it up and I'm going to put glue dots on there. So he's got his tail stuck in there. So we'll just give everything a little fold down. So you've got the tail stuck in there. We've got the trunk, and it doesn't matter if the trunk comes together a little bit at the front, if the glue, you can also use PVA, so if you want to use PVA glue on there as well. And then you've more or less got your little elephant friend. You can fold the ears up slightly. And then also we need to put an eye on. So to give our elephant an eye, I'm going to use some scrap card, and I'm going to use a hole punch, and I'm going to punch a couple of circles. And I quite like this orange because it's a strong contrast to the blue. And now I've got my two eyes. To stick those on, I'm going to use some PVA glue, and I'm going to use a cotton bud. And they're really good because you can just get a tiny amount of glue, so you don't need very much. And then do exactly the same on the other side, and have a look where the eyes are so you can try and get them at the same spot. So we'll leave our elephant's eyes to dry. So I'd like to make a garland of elephants, and to do that I'm going to use some wool, and so I'd like to string the elephants up. So I'm going to have them strung in a line, and it's going to be one elephant and two, and so on. And to do that we need to find the best balancing point for the thread. We're going to use a pencil. The elephant needs to balance so it's not tipping too far either way. And so that seems about right. So I'm going to draw a little mark. I'm going to draw a mark with the pencil, and then we'll carefully poke a hole through. So I'm going to draw some toes on the feet. I'm going to draw 3 lines on each foot. So we're going to do 2 more elephants. So starting from the beginning, I'm going to make these up. So now we've got all our elephants made out of paper, it would be good to make them into a garland, and that means hanging them by a thread so that they're hanging one on top of each other. Now you don't have to make the garland part, but it's just something that I thought might be nice to add in. So the way we're going to do this, each elephant has got a hole in the top, and we balanced them on a pencil earlier to make sure that when they're hanging, the elephants' heads aren't too heavy or their tails aren't too heavy, and so they're going to be just right and level in the middle. And I've got some beads here that are going to be bigger than the hole underneath. So these beads are going to sit underneath the paper, and we're going to tie those in, and they'll make a really good way of hanging the elephants. So we've got the grey elephant to start off with. So I'm going to use this orange wool, which is really nice and vibrant, and thread first bead through, so you can see the bead on there, and I'm going to tie a double knot around that bead, and this is going to be at the bottom of the garland, and it's going to stop the elephant from passing through the wool and the rope. So I need to think about how much space I'm going to leave between each elephant. So if I have one hanging, I might want to leave about the length of an elephant. So I'm going to have one there, and then I'll have a second elephant on top of that, and then a third elephant, and then some room at the top for me to hang the elephant and maybe make a hoop. So I'm going to cut it about, I'm going to leave a little bit extra, so I'm going to cut it about there. So the next thing to do, we've got the bead on one end of the wool, and we've cut the wool, and on the other end we're going to thread this wool through the hole in the middle, but from underneath. And if the wool's not quite going through, you can use something like a pencil just to help push it through the hole. And we'll pull that all the way through. And there we have our first elephant that's hanging down. So you can see at the side there, it's hanging through there. So the next thing we need to do is put another bead on. And we might want to think about keeping these lengths the same in between. And it doesn't mean you have to have a ruler, because you could just use one of our scrap pieces of card as a measuring stick. So I've got a scrap piece of card here, so maybe I'll use that as a measuring stick in between. And I'm just going to check if I have my next elephant hanging there. Yeah, that's plenty of room. So I use that as a bit of a measuring stick, and what we're going to do again, we're going to knot another of these blue beads, going to knot another of the blue beads onto the orange thread. So I'll put that lovely grey elephant at the top there, and I've got my little marker point where I'm going to thread it onto. Thread that blue bead down, get a little measuring stick, and it's about down to about there, and then again we're going to tie a knot around that. So I'm going to do a double knot. That's our second knot. And so I'm going to put the next elephant on. I think I'm going to go for the pink elephant next. So this hole in the pink elephant's not very large, so I'm just going to make that a little bit bigger. And then I've got the end of the thread. And remember, we're threading from the underneath. And poking that through, and that's coming through really well. And I'm going to thread, pull this thread, pull this thread, pull this thread, pull this thread until it hits the bead. Now let's see, oh well done, they're both hanging really nicely. So those two are both working together. So I've got one elephant and two elephants on the garland. And then it's just our lovely last blue elephant. And so I'll make the hole in there a little bit bigger as well. And again, I'm going to use our measuring card. So just a scrap piece of card, but the same piece. And I'm going to measure about there. So I'm going to thread this last bead. Thread that onto the wool. Get an approximate measure. There we go, just to keep them all about the same length. So we've got one knot on there. I'm going to do another knot. So that's great, we've got a double knot on there. And we're going to feed our last elephant. So we're going to thread it from the bottom. And we're going to poke it through. And there we go, it's coming right through the top. And great, that one's hanging on there as well. So now we've got our lovely 3 paper elephants all together in a garland. And when we hang them up in a window, or we hang them on from a wall, or hang them next to a bookcase or something like that, they will hang down and be a beautiful decoration. So at the top of the garland you might want to tie a loop so that you've got something to hang this from. So to do that, just make a loop of thread, and then I'm just going to tie a knot that's lower down. And again, you can do that in a double knot. And then if you want to neaten up the last little part of the garland, if you can thread the end of this thread back through, if you can thread it back through this blue elephant, just make the hole slightly bigger, and hold that piece of wool to one side, should be able to poke that through. And you might need an extra pair of hands while somebody's holding it to just poke it through with a pencil. So that's great. And so that's great. So now you've got this piece coming back through, we can make a really nice tidy tie on the bottom here onto this bead. I'm just going to cut this thread. Sometimes when you've been threading things through a lot, the thread frays and it can be harder to pass through things. But now, see through there, so poke it through with a pencil. Let's just straighten that out so it's nice and straight. So you can see there we've got a nice straight line, and then that means your knot here is going to be tucked away under the elephant. You won't see it, it's going to be nice and neat, and you won't have any frayed tassels on the top part. If you did have extra beads, you could add extra beads to the top part to decorate it. So you could thread them on during this part where you finish it off. And that could look quite nice because you could have a thread of beads coming down here to the top of the elephant and then have your loop at the top. So that's great. So now we've got this thread here, I'm going to cut this part off. That should sit neatly underneath our blue elephant. And because you can't really see them very well from this angle, we're going to take a picture from the side so you can see them all finished.